Okay, so first off, I'm gonna apologize for my lack of videos I've put out here within the last month. Like I previously stated in my last video, I was gonna go help out a buddy who operates a pretty legendary AK building service here locally, and he had some people quit on him and needed some help, so I wound up going to work for them full time, you know, building guys like that up there. And so it's really kind of cut into me doing some of the Wolf-Haus stuff time-wise, but I'm still trying to manage both the best I can. But and it's actually, you know, generating me some leads that are being up there for stuff like this, so it's kind of helping everybody out in the situation, and it's just fun. But this is going to be an unexpected part 2 on a backlash compensation here. As in another video shoot a couple months back, I kind of described how I was doing my backlash compensation stuff and just trying to show the whole process. And I've actually got finally doing like my first job. It's not making one of my own products, but you know, just making a part for someone else that needs it that I wound up getting through my day job. And I started to machine it and noticed here, I got this one right here. I started to machine it, and we had to design this in CAD from some old blueprints that were like 70 years old, and you could hardly read them, and it was kind of a pain. Took us way longer than we thought, but eventually we came up with what we needed for the design. But then when I came to start machining it, this hole right here in the center of it was showing up a little bit small. And you know, there's also going to be in this part a slit on this side, so because like right here there'll be a hole for a clamp that goes through so it can clamp onto something. And but it was still showing up too small to, even if that was slit, it wasn't going to fit onto what it needed to. And so I went back and programmed some changes to it to open that hole up a little bit, and noticed that I was kind of off by like 4 thousandths. It also happened that this week, since we're in Oklahoma, the weather's pretty screwy, and we've been having swings from below freezing to as much as 80 degrees in the same week, or you know, going on for the last couple weeks actually, but really intense this last week. And so this isn't a climate controlled shop at my house, unlike up at my day job. And so I was wondering if that was playing a factor in some of the machine stuff going on here. It's also been, you know, I haven't done any like maintenance to check the accuracy of this machine since that last video where I was doing my backlash compensation. And so there was just a lot of variables that could be going into why is this circle or hole not coming out to be the size it needs to be. And eventually when I went back to try and open it up also, I went back into Fusion 360 and added a few thousandths to the hole to open it up to be the correct size, and it wound up doing this weird thing where it opened it up to the correct size, but it cut more on one side and never made contact on this side over there. And so that's when I started to wonder about, like, okay, is it just the weather? Is my backlash compensation need to be adjusted? What could it be? Now, I'm not going to go through the whole process of explaining how to adjust your backlash compensation again, since I made a previous video on doing that, but I'm going to explain a few changes I've made into how I'm doing it for this machine without going through all the steps. But the last time I had set the backlash compensation, when the weather was a little bit more consistent, I can't even remember if it was, I mean, I think it was in fall time or maybe winter. I mean, it was relatively cold out here. But on these knobs that lock down the table, since this is a knee mill that's CNC rather than a VMC, I'd applied minimal tension to them instead of just letting them loose. Like you can see right now, like they're loose. And that was how I'd been running them previously, and I was having for like 6 months to a year, just couldn't get repeatability on this thing. Like, as I've stated before, all of my machining stuff I've ever done was self-taught. I've just figured it out on my own from watching other guys on YouTube and getting some help from the dude that I'm now working for in the day. And even at that, like, he was self-taught as well. So like, you know, I've never really had a professional, quote unquote, background in this kind of deal. And but so I had been, on the last time I did it, I'd applied a little bit of tension to lock down the gib instead of having them loose like they were when the machine was delivered. And that seemed to kind of mitigate my problem, even though I'd also adjusted the gibs and adjusted the backlash, the compensation numbers and the control. And that mitigated my problem for a few months to where I was getting repeatability a lot better. I was still having a few inaccuracy problems, but at that time I was just working on prototypes for my own products, and so none of them needed, the tolerances on them needed to be super dead on, and so a few thousandths here and there, it really was more cosmetic than it was, you know, needing to be right what it needed to be. But now that I'm starting this first job for someone else that the part actually requires a tighter tolerance, I'm kind of going back and rethinking the way I had done that a while back. And so instead of having some tension added to these locks, I've decided to loosen them all and then just make some adjustments to the gibs and where they were set in there, as well as the settings in the control. And so I've already done the Y-axis last night and didn't film anything because it really didn't think about it. But I'm doing the X-axis right now. I think I've even got it set, but I'll show a test of how it's working. But I mostly just wanted to explain the issue with these handles and what I'd done to the gibs. And so previously, after I had kind of put some tension on those gibs, or on those locks, I had really, you know, kind of pressed the gibs in probably a little bit too far, trying to get the machine to be more accurate. But one thing I had noticed was that while my X-axis sounded really good when it was moving and smooth, my Y-axis, there was it's like any time where it would initiate the backlash compensation, you could hear a louder jump of either I believe it was probably the screw or the servo motor down there. And you could hear that on the X previously, but it was very subtle and you couldn't feel it in the machine. But on the Y, whenever it would do it, it was loud, a lot louder to hear. And if you even just had a finger like on the vise, you could feel the whole machine like wobble whenever the backlash compensation would initiate. You could even be touching the control and feel the whole machine wobble from it. And so I realized that I had done one of two, or possibly two of two things. I had either drove the gibs in too tight and too far, or I had the lock right here was too tight. It was a combination of the two. I don't know which one was more than the other, but so this time around, I wound up deciding to leave these locks completely loose, loosen the gibs up a little bit, and then just go with strictly having the compensation set off of the correct numbers that need to be put into the control. It sounds a lot better now. Here in a minute, I'll have to, you know, when I get done demonstrating with this setup here on the X, I'll let y'all hear the Y-axis, even though I can't show you what it sounded like before since I've already adjusted it, but you can hear how it's running smoothly now. Another thing is that the last time I adjusted my backlash compensation, when I went to pull out some of the gib screws, I noticed that two of them, which I don't know if you'll be able to see this that well, but two of them were bent. Okay, I think you can kind of see. They're bent a little bit to the left there. Well, okay, now it's bent to the right, but it's bent to the left right there. And since that's not a part you can just pick up on the same day you're working on something, I'd kind of done this janky little deal on this one back here, where I ran up to Ace Hardware and got a, you know, just a standard bolt there, and I saw cut a slot into it and got a couple washers and managed to rig something up that was working for a couple months, but it wasn't correct in any way. And so recently I found on Amazon a US manufacturer that makes the replacement gib screws for Bridgeports. And wow, this is what the one for this machine looks like. That it's not a Bridgeport, it's the same size. This is their version, which you can't, you see back here, yeah, you can see, okay, so it still has like the step to hit the gib, but they just don't, they machine more material off the area around where the screwdriver slot is. And so I picked one of those up for like $16 off Amazon. Didn't buy two of them initially, because I thought it was just, I forgot that I did that for two of the screws. Last one I thought it was just one, and then this one showed up, I installed it, and then I realized when I started adjusting all the gibs and Backlash stuff a couple days ago that I had another one that was like that. And so I've now got another one of these that's going to show up here probably within, you know, it's Saturday right now, so within the first few days of next week it'll show up, and I'll get that installed. And may have to make a few more tweaks to it, but for anyone looking for replacement parts for those, here, let me see, I think I have a business card for them. Hold on a second. It's this people right here. Now they sell on Amazon. They usually tend to be in, says they're, you know, running low on stock. Like I've never seen them with more than like 5 in stock at a time. And I think like right now with the second one I bought, they probably had one more left in stock, but I'm sure that once their stock gets low, they probably replenish it. But yeah, these people right here, you can search for Bridgeport gib screw on Amazon and find them, or you can contact them if you're looking for that type of deal. And they seem to be pretty, I mean, they're, you know, good machine parts. They seem to be pretty solid. I don't know if, I don't know why they look a little bit different than this style. I just assumed that on Bridgeports, they were originally like that, and this was something they changed to over the years, you know, decades after the Bridgeport was initially created, is kind of what I figured. But okay, well, so now, I've already said pretty much everything I needed to, but I guess I'll go and give, you know, one quick little demonstration of each axis, how the sound, how they're moving, and show, you know, the repeatability I'm now getting after changing these settings here. So, here, let's go. You can see that right there. Well, if I can hold the camera still. Okay, that's at 0. So then what we're gonna do, we're just gonna send the machine home in the X-axis. And I've currently got this set up that to where the indicator is 5 inches away from home. This is taking a little bit longer than I thought. I didn't realize that I had it set at only 25% speed to home it. Sorry. Okay, so then we're gonna come back up here and we'll go G01F15, since that's kind of around, I'm not in MDI mode, hold on. G01F15 X -5. And I'm using 15 just because that's around the feed rate I use the most. But when I was initially setting this, I was kind of going through a range of different feed rates to see how it worked. I went from like as low as 5 to up to like 50, and kind of just average out like what was the best selection for my backlash compensation. Okay, there you have it. That's the X. Now, along with loosening up the table and slide locks, as well as adjusting the gib screws and how tight they were, I'd mentioned how I had changed some of the parameters in my machine, and after loosening those up and making those adjustments, I'd previously had, hold on, let me zoom this in. For backlash compensation, this 80 was previously a 69, and you can see here that that number correlates to 1/10 of an inch. I don't know why they don't have it, just have you put in this specific number there, but they do it where on this style of control where you put in a number that correlates to that. And the Y was set at 202. And so I made the mechanical adjustments to the machine that had to then correlate with the control adjustments here. Okay, and we'll demonstrate one more time with this X-axis backlash comp at a different speed and see how it goes. So we're gonna go G01, hold on, MDI mode, G01 F25 X -5. Okay, and you can see there's a little bit of overshooting that line on the 0 right there, but before I was recording this, I had adjusted the number here to on the parameters. 1 second, let me get to it. I'd had the what was 80 set at 79, and when I had it set like that, it actually on the indicator it was undershooting the pointer, not quite reaching the 0, but with more distance than it has now where it's at on the opposite side. So this is more accurate than that side. There's a little bit of deviation. This is at best, you know, right here, this is a 1 thou machine. I realized that I'm not going to be doing, you know, super complex, you know, parts on this just because it's not the most up-to-date style of machine. One of these days, hopefully I'll have enough money to get into one of those, but got to work with what you got. And lastly, like I said before, even though I can't demonstrate what it used to sound like, I will let y'all try and hear how my Y axis sounds now that I loosened up to where compared to how tight it used to be. So let me just MPG this down here for a second. Okay. Now we'll send it home. But yeah, so now the only thing you can hear, you heard that initial click, which I don't understand anything about decibels, but it's at least half as quiet as it used to be when you would change direction. That previously that click was like really loud, and you can hear now that the only thing, the sound that's going on is just the bearings in here rotating. Pretty smooth. Slow right now, but like I said, set it, you know, 25% speed. But yeah, I guess that'll be it for this video. Here pretty soon, I'm planning on finishing these few parts that, you know, are part of this whole deal that made me realize I needed to make all these changes, and I'll put a video out within the next week or two about, you know, getting my first job and making those first parts for the dude. So stay tuned.